All right, so I had a lot of trouble putting together short reviews for October 11th, not only because I wasn't all that interested in a lot of the options, but there wasn't a lot to say about even these. But I think I put together about six records that are should be of interest to different types of fans, especially if you're looking for something that is at least tangentially related to anything remotely old school or thrash, speed, black metal, and death metal. So we start with Laster's Anderman's Mij. Uh, I think this is their fourth full-length album, and this comes after they've progressively been working towards becoming a progressive metal band with a bit of kind of a virus and Bedouin's End and Don Heimskard feeling to their sound. But this is a move into progressive metal and rock territory where some of the art rock and avant-garde uh, rock rhythms and a little bit of influence for bass driven and variously jazzy uh, movements take this out of the realm of black metal for the most part. There are some post-black kind of rushes and rhythm and that, but this is a step away from black metal for this band. And we've seen this in a couple other bands from the Netherlands lately, where they move away from the cliches of black metal almost entirely. So this will be a very familiar thing. It will not be as related to atmospheric black metal as any of their past releases, and probably their furthest step away from the extreme metal realm thus far. But that doesn't mean it's not an interesting record. It's just a bit of a challenge to get through it with anything that really sticks in mind. The Gathering Souls is the debut mini LP from Malformed, and this is a Finland-based death metal band who clearly have some interest in, I guess, both the technical and the brutal side of death metal, but in an old school sense. And that leaves our sound somewhere between like Malevolent Creation and Cannibal Corpse on one end, and maybe a little bit of Demolic, and especially I said Gorguts, kind of the earlier Gorgut sound, Erosion of Sanity to some effect, and maybe they're probably fans of Suffocation if I had to guess what the drummer was all about. And this puts them in line with like Cryptic Hatred and Disguised Malignance and that style in a lot of ways. And I think they've played in bands with those guys otherwise. So all very young, very enthusiastic, and just kind of brutal stuff. This is a solid showing of death metal. If you're a fan of the classics, I would say this is more like 94 to 96 feeling. Definitely kind of demo level work in terms of creating those rhythms and nailing the point with them, but that's not a bad thing. So I liked it. I enjoyed the art and the sound of the thing, but I'm looking forward to what they do next with this idea, and see how they develop the technicality of it and how far they push that. So the eighth full-length album from Krieg, like I was ready to write a full review of this, but as I went through the discography of this band, and I realized I'm not sure what to expect from this group, and I'm not sure what their signature is. And I know that people insist their importance in the development of the United States black metal sound, and I could see that in some respects throughout the years. But maybe some of that had been overstated early on, because I felt like their early work is pretty dry. It's not. It was never big for me, but around the 2000s, it started to break off and collaborate, and there was a lot more to it. And I think most people would find the isolationist most palatable as something that is decidedly modern and unique and in the style of Krieg. And you could go back to Blue Miasma for that as well. That's the record I kind of lean towards. I'm not a big fan of like Nocmistium. I really love his work in Twilight, and I didn't really connect with Transient. It was almost like an attempt at noise rock black metal, but it didn't quite work. So I was kind of expecting Ruiner to be that. But this record has more to do with the Isolationist and maybe Twilight in the way that it incorporates maybe some death rock influences. It's got a little bit more of a leveled out sound, and it feels less improvised than some of their other work. And we get, I think, a little bit more of Alex Poole's personality here. It's mostly imperial, as far as I understand, but yeah, it's an interesting black metal record. I like there were songs where I really connected with it that were great, and then there were these really plain pieces, like the ones that kick off the record, that it didn't all gel together. It seemed like a collection of pieces that kind of worked and kind of related, and that was about as enthusiastic as I got about it, other than the few pieces that were, I think, great and exemplar of Krieg. Midnight Assassin is a second full-length album from Austin, Texas-based black speed metal band Sadistic Force, and their first record had this great album cover, but I missed the timing for it and discovered it later that year, so I was glad to jump on this one, see what it was all about, and check out their sound, and I guess it is a little bit more modern than I expected. It's something closer to Wraith or Midnight than it is to the old classics, and their songwriting isn't that inventive. Their leads aren't very well written, and it's almost there's a naivety to it that is both great in concept and really well represented by the art, and you can tell that they really love this type of stuff. But I don't think their songwriting is quite up to par with what they're able to present otherwise. So it was like a great album cover, kind of okay album response from me. And I think they could do better in general in terms of just writing riffs. And this wasn't as much of a riff album as I was expecting. Inferno is the debut full-length album from Arborescence of Wrath, and this is a kind of a brutal death metal band in the style of Chrysian and Hate Eternal, and it is very much just that. It is a lot of sort of Deicide-esque vocal cadence. It is, it's got the vocalist from Origin on here, and a lot of impressive musicians here who really know what they're doing, and they're just hammering away at this very brutal, very straightforward record. There's kind of an okay immolation thing at the end, cover of Into Everlasting Fire, and it works. You know, this is not a bad record by any stretch. I just don't think it's going to leave a real big dent in your head, especially there's more and more options in this style every day, so and a lot in the past as well. So this was kind of a moment of nostalgia for me that didn't ever connect past just being a brutal and very well performed death metal album. So a great record, just didn't leave a dent. Pray for Armageddon is kind of a long time coming. It's been about a decade since we've heard from Blessed Curse on their self-titled record, and this is a Sacramento, California area thrash metal band. I would say kind of the neo-thrash style, a little bit classic in its intent, influenced by Creator in its vocals, and you can tell they appreciate a bit of late 80s Dark Angel too in the way they construct some of their riffs. The problem with this record is kind of the same problem they had in the first one, is that they're not constructing particularly sophisticated songs, and the riffcraft never fully, it needs more input. It needs a different style to clash with it, because this is a lot of kind of brutal chunked at riffs that are a bit repetitive in style, and for me, I can sit back and listen to a thrash metal band all day long and enjoy the effect of thrash metal as it plays. So I'm that much of a fan. So I don't find huge fault in what they're doing at all. I think that it just doesn't have the songs. It doesn't have the kind of mastery to it that you'd expect after 10 years off. So not a bad record at all, and a good continuation of the style that they first presented, but also not an elevation of it. Just they've returned to kind of that parity where they were before. That was not that was a pretty hard by that was a pretty high bar to begin with.